I just set mine to record.
Okay. We're we should be recording on one of our computers right now. So if anyone's just jumping on right now and watching from the beginning, it's because we something changed in Zoom again, and we think we got it figured out, but we'll see.
Well, I'm hoping so. Every time we do this, it seems like Zoom changes something or something else.
It's
So
always something, but something new over my
yes, I
shoulder.
was gonna say that's a new light. I can only see speed.
Speed, yeah, it looks a little, it's tough with the lighting, but it's a speed lab. I got a
Speed
neon
lab.
light for the speed lab,
I
so
love it.
it won't stay here. I'm actually going to take it on campus. So, but that's our new mobile facility that we can take around
I know
and
it's so exciting.
and I know when we're off at our next race over in New Zealand, we're going to meet and we're going to strategize how we can do some things with the mobile lab, the speed lab.
Well, I was
Sport,
thinking we got a 14-hour flight that we're on the same flight, so maybe
yeah, yeah.
sit down and actually do some work like that.
I love it. Yeah, so SPEED stands for Sport, Performance, Education, and Economic Development.
Awesome.
So the whole initiative is to try to push sports science out to the community, and so in the sense of doing education or doing clinics um, or doing research, and so we'll do all those things this next year. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, or we can maybe podcast from the plane.
Yeah, that's right.
Set up a little podcast because I'm thinking we probably aren't going to want to podcast next Friday since we're leaving next Saturday.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know about you, but I'll be panic packing the day before.
Okay, I am looking at my interface right now, and my record button is not pushed, but I chose smart recording. So you're recording.
Yes.
So you may be sending me the recording afterwards. So,
Okay.
well, how are you doing?
Good. Good. Yeah. Just panic training. Um, it's actually panic training, panic therapy. I'm going. Been doing therapy 3 or 4 times a week, every week.
Okay,
And
okay.
then on top of that, trying to get some training in. Uh,
Yeah.
it's so hard, John, and we talked about this before, but when you are doing nothing for so long,
Hmm.
um, and you start to train again, one of the biggest setbacks I'm having is just little nags of a little
Yeah.
injury here, a little injury there, because my body's not used to what I'm asking it to do. And I think ultimately things have changed in the architecture of my tendons and my muscles and um, the timing that I'm doing things. Like I'm running a little different, I'm swimming a little different, I'm even riding a little different.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of been like a ping ponging around of like little things that have been just popping up, and it's frustrating, but I know that's part of the process, and so
Hmm.
I'm trying not to get frustrated, but it's hard.
It is hard. It's hard not to feel defeated because every day you're battling something and something new, and the body is, like you said, reacting a little differently. You're dealing with some injuries that are still healing, and it's hard not to get frustrated and then say, "Oh, I'm done." And so, these are some of the biggest challenges in endurance performance is getting to a start line healthy, and this aspect of recovering from major injuries and getting healthy and to give yourself a chance to get to the start line, that's a whole nother angle. You're not trying to train to race well,
Yep.
trying to train to be able to do the event, and it is a different mindset.
It's a totally different mindset because like I also know that I could do nothing between now and the race in 2 weeks and
Yeah.
probably be at the start line and feel really good. Now the back half would feel horrible, so I'm trying to continue to train. So it's this balance, and John, I'll go off of something that we spoke a lot about in the past, and that's like train today so you can train tomorrow. And
Hmm.
even, I mean, yesterday was a really big day for me, and I, it doesn't seem like a big day, but we did a turkey trot, and I did it. I got a number, and I went out, and this was the first event I've done, and it was only the second run outside I've done.
Um,
And as I'm going, and I'm like, I can go faster, but I didn't.
mhm.
You know, my hamstring was a little bit, and my quadricep was a little bit. I'm like, just take it easy,
Yeah,
make it around. Just finishing this is a big accomplishment.
yeah.
And you know, when I finished, I felt this really huge success for me in a time that was disgusting for me.
Hmm.
It didn't matter. Like it was the finishing, and I got on the bike today and I rode, and you know, I did 70 minutes because my quadricep started hurting today on the bike. I'm like, hey, well, I want to ride again tomorrow, so let's get off. And you know,
Yep.
and I'm literally mitigating day to day, and it's good. Like I'm still making progress. You know, I'm actually seeing good things happen. My heart rate is starting to actually come down a little bit for the efforts, and I'm getting stronger. And if I had another couple months, things would be better, but I don't. And so
Well, but we're playing the long game. It's not,
it's,
you're not looking for these short-term gains. And, as you were talking, the phrase that came to mind is, we got to move the goalpost. A lot of times people say that's sort of a bad way that you're moving the goalpost, but you have to move the goalpost. You have to move what defines success. And you've got to get the goalpost to the point where you can kick the field goal or whatever it is. And I think that's what you're doing is you're setting these other goals that are not goals that you could have easily just sort of dismissed a year ago and say, oh, there's no way that being able to run for 3 minutes is going to be a goal. But now that is a goal, and that's I think the strength of a recovery mindset is being able to scale those goals to something that's achievable, something that you can move the goalpost and actually get the ball through.
well, and I think we've talked about this before, is knowing yourself and knowing like where you are today.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you can be. And you need, like, in my opinion, once again, this is my opinion, you need to be happy with where you are today.
Mm-hmm.
Not even happy, accepting of where you are today, and train or even race at your fitness level where you actually are,
Mm-hmm.
instead of going further. And you know, and I've made some mistakes along the way. Like I'm not gonna lie to you, like I've pushed it a little bit too hard, because you still have this, like, you know, ego, or your mind still thinking that you're not
Mm-hmm.
injured or not recovering from an injury. But for the most part during this time, I've been really good about that. And even thinking about like racing at the 70.3 in, was it 16 days? I got a little calendar.
Mm-hmm.
16 days. Someone actually was asking me like, what's the goal? And I'm like, the goal number one is to have fun. Number two is to not get injured to the point
Mm-hmm.
where I can't enjoy the rest of my vacation in New Zealand. And they're like, well, what about the time? And I'm like, time is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And that's probably the first time I've ever done a triathlon that time was irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the true
Yeah.
success is going to be, you know, just crossing the mats, right? Crossing the swim time mat. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to be big. Like I haven't swam over, like the longest thing I've done is 100, right? I've done a lot of hundreds, but I've not done anything longer than that. So,
Well,
you know, crossing each mat is going to be a thing, or
yeah.
crossing even like on the bike, when you get to the end of the bike course and you turn around, like all of these things are going to be little goals along the way, and
Mm-hmm.
not this, yeah, I'm going to I'm going to do a 4:30. That has like, there's no time in my brain,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I don't know. And it's actually kind of in some ways very freeing.
So what's interesting is we say this, we want to just go have fun, but it's what defines fun. And we've talked about this probably a couple of years ago, if not even 3 years ago, where fun for us was pushing to the limits and trying to find what you can do, either endurance wise, speed wise, combination, whatever it is, but trying to really push the limits. But I think right now, fun has to be recalibrated. And what fun is going to mean is not pushing the limit. And so now and I'm trying to think of the same things, is how can I identify that I'm enjoying the experience when it's different than how I would enjoy an experience normally. And so I think
It's a puzzle though, John.
it is.
Like I think that a lot of times in triathlon, we've talked about why some of the reasons we love triathlon is because it is a puzzle to try and solve.
Hmm.
Right. And so some of the things I've been thinking about in the puzzle is how can I use the least amount of effort
Hmm.
possible to
Yeah.
go as fast as possible. And I know we always think about that, but I'm serious. Like, how can what's the easiest I can swim to not hurt myself
Yeah.
and still get to the finish of the swim as fast. I still want to get there as fast as I can with
Yeah.
that understanding with the least amount of effort.
Right. Right.
And
But along the way, you have to recalibrate
yeah,
what you're looking for to say this is fun. Because
but
normally,
for me, that's the fun.
what's that?
But for me, that's the fun, right? The
Yeah.
fun is going to be to solve this problem of not
Right.
being
Yeah.
fit and not having the training. And how do you
Yeah.
solve the problem to still actually get to the finish line and not be destroyed?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And
No, I
that's
love
fun for me.
No, I love it. In fact, this reminds me, someone just recently did Ironman Cozumel and talked about the struggles of getting to the finish line during the race. And they struggled with GI issues, which is that GI issues can be debilitating and they can really, they can stop a race. And, and at that point, just getting to the finish line was the big accomplishment. There was nothing to do at the time. And what I wrote on his post was something to the effect of, actually the most memorable races are often the ones that were overcoming something. And the bigger the challenge, the bigger the accomplishment, has nothing to do with time. And I think that's what New Zealand's going to be in this case for you and myself as well, is just going and doing the race will be, overcoming challenges. So, and the time really does not matter.
Yeah, and honestly, it's kind of crazy to say, but because still remember being in the trauma unit and trying to explain to a doctor that my goals are different than your goals was for me.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to race in New Zealand in December, and he kind of like chuckled. He's like, "Yeah, that's not going to happen."
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm not doing it because of like spite for that, but the goal of just racing there when you're in a trauma unit is huge,
yeah,
right? And that's fun. Is like I figured out how to do, or I'm figuring out how to get there. You're figuring out how to get there.
yeah,
And once again, we both have our own journeys to do it. And what will define success and fun is like figuring out how to go from like the couch
yeah.
to a 70.3 and yeah,
Well,
and if it's 7 hours, if it's 8 hours, whatever it is,
yeah, yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like that's the other thing is like maybe if I finish in 8 hours, I get a lot more time for my money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think the entry fee was $800. Hey, now I'm $100 an hour.
Access to more supplies at aid stations this time, so that'll be time to get more stuff. But you mentioned healthcare, and I don't want to bash healthcare because it's an important part of recovering from an injury, diagnosing an injury, coming up with a treatment plan, and even rehab. But it is something that as athletes we do have to often push our healthcare team or provider a bit more because people want to be active. And a lot of times the healthcare industry is so used to dealing with people who don't do crazy endurance sports. And so we're not the norm. So when we're standing there and resting heart rate is low, and they're like, oh, well, let's worry about resting heart rate being low. No, that's not a problem. But when we're in talking with a doctor, it is important to be an advocate for the lifestyle that we want to maintain. And that's not always easy. Not always easy to break out from, hey, let's just get you back to, walking around the mall or what have you.
Yeah, and like for that, like I'm good. Like I can walk around the mall. I can do everything a normal 52-year-old
Yeah.
walking
Yeah.
around the street can do. No problem at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so like the medical establishment,
Mm-hmm.
like you're good.
Yeah.
nice, you got low blood pressure, you got a, low
Yeah.
heart rate, you're not overweight, like all these little checks, right? You don't smoke, you're all these things. And they're like, yeah, you're good, you're success.
Mm-hmm.
And you've succeeded, you succeeded from this accident that you had.
Mm.
But I think that's why it's important to find people in the medical community that are used to dealing with athletes that are injured. And like we talked about this before, I I hired a athletic trainer to do
Mm-hmm.
my rehab. And I'm an athletic trainer. I've
Yeah.
for my life, for 30 years, I've been an athletic trainer because I wanted to work with somebody that the goal is the race. The goal is
Mm-hmm.
to get back to triathlon. Not the goal is to go back to a sedentary 52-year-old.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And I think that it's important to surround yourself, with people that
Yeah.
understand that. And
Mm-hmm.
um, in another vein, many people have said, "You're crazy. You're going to think about doing this." I'm like, you don't like. I'm not crazy. I've been doing this my entire adult career. I've been helping athletes that
Mm-hmm.
are injured return to play.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I literally, it's what I do. That's what I teach my
Mm-hmm.
students to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm using those exact same principles
Mm-hmm.
to do this in a safe way. And I know it sounds crazy to like have had 16 fractures and lung issues and all these issues, and in 4 months go and race
Mm-hmm.
a half Ironman. But I did a ton of reading on this, and like what I'm doing is not abnormal. If you had a high level triathlete, we hear about them all the time. They get in a car accident or something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
3 months later they're back racing. Or even we look at like the postpartum triathlete, right? Oh, I can't believe this woman had a baby 4 months ago, and then she's doing a triathlon.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But it's what you go in with.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went into this actually in really good fitness,
Yeah.
and that same with that postpartum lady. Like, she goes into that with really good fitness.
Mm-hmm.
The backside is not as daunting.
Yeah. No, it's funny you say that because I always had this, advice for people when they're going in for surgery is you have to train to have your surgery. Get in the best shape you can before whatever the surgery is, because the surgery is going to lay you up for a bit. So the best thing is to have your highest fitness as you can, because you're going to lose some after you have some surgery.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny you said that. So I'll share a little top secret thing with you. So last year when I had the other surgery, like I
Hmm.
remember I was in like pre-surgery, just for some reason I'm in this room for like an hour waiting.
Hmm.
So I'm standing up, I'm doing calf raises. Like I'm bored, but I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to do any. Like I was out for that time, I was out for 6 weeks as well, or longer. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
the stronger I can go in, the better off I'm gonna be on the other side.
Just on the side, I don't want to get too far off topic though, but you say calf raises. I actually wrote a paper recently on the benefits of just doing seated calf raises. It's interesting. So,
So actually, this is a biomechanics slash athletic training question. So we weren't planning to talk about this, but I came across an article. This has got to be maybe 6 months ago. I wish I had it. It's in my brain. It's not. I don't know where it even is. And it was looking at the anthropometrics, I think is the word, of older runners versus younger runners,
hmm.
and basically trying to figure out what made older runners slower.
Hmm.
And their thought was, and the premise of the paper, that it actually was calf strength,
Hmm.
and that the biggest difference between like the 50-year-old runner and the 20-year-old runner was actually like the ability to produce force in the calves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so they were suggesting that, as you get older, that you really should do a lot of work to concentrate on calf,
Mhm.
not just strength, but power in the calf.
Right.
And one of the things that I do, or was doing a lot of, was actually jumping rope, and just to keep the power in the calves, and then lifting weights in the calves.
Hmm.
But then I started thinking about it. I bet if they looked at triathletes, we might not see it as much, because cycling, you have almost constant contraction of the calf muscle. So we might
Yeah.
not see it as much. But anyways, I don't know if you've come across that.
Not that specifically, but as we get older, we tend to have those calf injuries. And, I wonder if this is just some connecting of the dots that you're starting to have some decrease in strength, but you're still trying to do some of the same exercises and what have you. So, yeah, the classic calf attack that a lot of older runners get.
So, John, the one you read, it was somewhat seated calf raises. Why seated, not standing? They
Say it again?
Why seated, not standing calf raises? For the one that you were referencing.
I don't know, but it was that was the focus of the paper was being. That's Cosmo. I thought that was my dog. It was a focus of being able to do seated calf raises while you're at work. So being able to do them for a long period of time. I'll have to go back and find the paper, but yeah, one of our listeners actually sent me the paper and looked at it. So yeah, interesting.
It is interesting, right? Because I think that standing calf raises and seated, they both have their benefits.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Seated calf raises, you tend to not use your gastrocnemius as much. Standing,
Yeah.
you tend to use your gastrocnemius and your soleus.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they were even unweighted seated calf. So they were
Just
calling
sitting
it
there, just lifting
calf
your.
push-ups. That's what they were calling it. So
Well, I guess it kind of makes sense if especially if you're relatively sedentary. If you're doing that, you're sitting at your desk for, let's say, 8 hours a day, and you're just lifting
right.
your feet. It's
It's activating muscle and
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do it right now while we're talking.
Yeah. Yeah. So back to injuries, it's just they're tough. And I always say there's three kinds of runners. Usually, I'd say runners: those who are injured, those who are recovering from an injury, and those who are soon to be injured. So put yourself in one of those bins. That's probably where we are with endurance sport at some point. The other part, though, obviously, is this is what you're dealing with are your traumatic injury from an accident, and that's a different category of injury. The injuries I'm referring to are mostly overuse type injuries that are due to sustained exercise over a long period of time. But traumatic injuries, accidents, being hit by a car, being crashing in a bike, being run over, whatever. It's that's different.
The other one, the kind of lesson that I've learned along the way that I wanted to share, and we've talked about this a long time when we talked about tendons and tendon health, is that tendons do need load.
Mm-hmm.
So many of my little injuries that I've had have come back in the last 6 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and they're mostly like little tendon things. Well, if rest was the thing that was going to make your tendons better, I rested great. Like I literally didn't walk, for 7 weeks. Can't get much better rest than that.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't cause any healing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Loading is what I need and what tendons need. And so really, I think that oftentimes we hear this, we get injured, and the knee-jerk things, well, I just need a week off. I need 2 weeks off. And 2 weeks off, especially if it's a tendon thing, is not what's going to heal you.
Mm-hmm.
You need to decrease the loading that you were doing, but still make sure you're loading. And I wasn't in a position where I could really do a lot of loading for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But in some ways, I'm like, oh my God, I should have been doing calf raises when I was, single leg calf raises. I was allowed to put pressure on one leg, not the other. But
Well,
like
you're spot on that. We need to move to heal. Yeah, it's just a matter of having the right amount of movement. But the other aspect of being able to exercise is the mental health. I wanted to swim today, but all the pools are closed. So
I know.
Where do I go? I go down to Lake Mead, and my wife says, "Oh, do you have to swim?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have to swim, not for physical fitness. I need to swim for my mental health." So I went down and swam, but it
was probably a great day down there, right? Because it wasn't windy today.
Yeah, it was just under 65-degree water temp.
Did you wear a wetsuit?
I did not.
Oh, now you're talking a little bit crazy.
Cold water therapy there. So, but it is, and this is the part about injuries and recovery is when you can't do the exercise that you want to do, that can be really a strain on our mental health.
Yeah, and once again, dealing with healthcare practitioners that don't understand that,
Hmm.
right? And like, well, I don't understand why you want to go for a run. Like,
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
right.
Well, my mental health is so important, and I know that that helps my mental health.
Hmm.
And I think that very few practitioners really understand that side of things, especially when your daily mental health is your hour run or your
Yeah.
2 hour bike ride or whatever you do. Um, and the feeling of accomplishment when you finish and all these positive things that ultimately happen. Uh,
Hmm.
it's unless they live that,
Hmm.
with a lot of people like that, it's really hard for people to
Hmm.
understand that side.
Yeah, no, the exercise obviously helps physiologically, but mentally, just being able to do that extra. Yeah, you're right. It is, you know, you're just thinking about other things. You're, finding a way to relax through exercise. You're mentally relax, and it is that is important. I know it's important to me. I know maybe I have a physical exercise addiction. I know I might have a problem with that, but I need to be incorporating exercise of some type. Otherwise, I just mentally it's really tough.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. So, John, we were going to talk about how to train when it gets dark outside and cold outside.
Yeah.
So
Part two.
let's see if
Yeah.
we can pivot to that a little bit now. We'll make some have people like not think about the negatives. Let's think about some positives. Although maybe
Okay.
training in the dark and stuff is negative, but so obviously, just recently the times changed and it's starting to get cold. Yesterday at our turkey trot, it was in the 40s. I think my watch said it was 46, 47 degrees when we were running, which was
That's
actually
cool.
really nice.
Yeah.
It was kind of crummy sitting around waiting for it to start, but it was really nice. Um, but the one thing that the people that I coach, I know they struggle with is because we do still have some like longer bike sessions and sometimes a lot of 2 a day training sessions is when it's dark and cold
Hmm.
and how to ultimately still be successful in your training. Uh,
Hmm.
so John, what are some of your keys to that?
Well, I think this goes right along with what we're talking about is that you don't want to let the weather in this case or the environment, the amount of sunlight we have, influence what you can do exercise wise. And so it is a matter of trying to find what works in your regular lifestyle. And nowadays, I mean, it's everyone's has so many different skills to be able to train indoors, and being able to set up an appropriate indoor training place, I think it is important. And it does make sense to spend some time thinking about how to set it up, where to set it up, what's convenient for you, what's convenient for your family, or roommates, or whomever. Trying to put some thought into how to make it work for everybody in the household really makes some sense.
No, it's totally, a thing you need to think about is your environment.
Hmm.
So I know some people that I work with and they train in the winter in their garage.
Hmm.
Some are not so good in the garage,
Yeah.
but in summer they're fine going outside for their long rides and whatever. And so, the garage is actually really nice this time of year.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
you have a garage, right? So
Yeah.
that's not bad. Some people I know they've taken over their dining room,
Yeah.
right? Because they don't use their dining room. They don't really have a lot of formal dinners or whatever. And so they get their dining room. Some people have a 10 by 10 bedroom set up.
Hmm.
Um, but I actually think the environment does matter. And where you choose to train, if you're setting up in a really comfortable, good environment, it helps with the mental side. A lot of people they hate doing long bike rides indoors.
Yeah.
And I would always kind of push back and say, well, what's your environment like indoors?
Hmm.
Why is it so bad indoors? And then you find out they're in a 10 by 10 bedroom with not good ventilation and no light. And,
Yeah.
you know, they don't have it kind of set up for themselves to be successful.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, so I think that's an important part is figuring out your environment.
I hate traveling and then going to a hotel exercise uh, place, and all it is a room with four walls and a bunch of equipment in there. And if you're running on the treadmill or sitting on the bike, you're just looking at a wall, and it's like this is just it's not inviting. And I think the at-home places that you set up to exercise, they have to be inviting. They have to be easy to access. It has to be easy to transition from activities of daily living and then say, oh, now I'm going to go exercise. It should not take a lot of work to push a button or get on a bike and do your ride. If you're always having to fidget with things or move things in and out, or move a table over here so you can do this, you eventually just work it out of your lifestyle, because those are just barriers to regular exercise. So, it really does take figuring out the right spot for your bike, for a bike trainer. If you have a treadmill, it's got to be the right spot.
Yeah. I think that you're spot on. Like I have some goals for myself. Like if I decide to ride, I should be able to be on my bike indoors in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Everything set
Right.
up. And that's
Yep.
like having a water, having my Zwift set up, having the
Yep.
TV on, whatever the case may be,
Yep.
having my heart rate monitor, having everything synced and working,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
the power meter working, whatever the case may be. I give myself a 10-minute window. And if
Yep.
I'm not in that 10-minute window, like I got to rethink something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And same with my treadmill. It's the exact same thing. I from the time I decide I'm going to run, I should be able to be running in 10 minutes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And because if it's longer than that, then the barrier to entry becomes, well, it's too much of a hassle. I got to do this before I can even do it. So we'll just put it off till tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really important thing is to have it be convenient for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you and I are both lucky enough to have a bike that's dedicated to the trainer. And, I spent some time getting that bike set up the same way as my bike that I ride outside, so that the positions are as close to similar as possible. They're very different frames, but they're close enough that one transitions to the other, translates nicely to the other. And that's just one less barrier to, oh, I got to take my rear wheel off, I got to do this, I got to do that. No, have something dedicated. Or if you know you're going to ride indoors for a week and then maybe do your Saturday or Sunday ride outside, you can plan for that ahead of time. And Friday night you're getting your bike set up for outdoor riding for the same thing, for the same reasons. Because I love riding outside this time of year, but it does take a little longer to get ready to bike outside, because the layers of clothing, you got to decide what layers, how many, and so it does take a little bit longer, as opposed to during summer. You just put on some kit and go. Now it takes some thought.
Yeah, and I'm like you too. Like I really like riding outdoors. Whether like today was a good day to ride outdoors. I mean, I chose not to because personally I'm doing some we talked about already, panic training. I'll get
Yeah.
more out of 70 minutes indoors than I will 70 minutes outdoors.
Right, right. That's
Just
right.
purely physiologically.
Yep.
No stoplights,
Mm-hmm.
no slowing down for a corner or anything. I can just get the work in.
Yeah.
Um, but there is also the thought when the winter of it's just not safe to ride.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. I know you can ride at night and you can get lights and stuff like that,
Yep.
but it's just not. I think it's not a risk that I really like to take to ride outside with lights if I don't
Mm-hmm.
absolutely have to. So and most people that probably listen to our podcast, they work. They got jobs and they're driving home from work and it's dark out. And I'll also tell you that so having that good setup is important because your mind starts to, when you're driving home in the dark, you're starting to think of like snuggling up on the couch,
Yeah.
and you kind of get into that hibernation mode in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And when you got the 90-minute bike ride that you got to do when you get home, once again having the environment with nice lighting and everything kind of just set and ready to go will make it easier than just sitting on the couch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really like the point about lighting, the environment, having your electronics set up, but just what it looks like in there is that, are you in a dungeon? Are you in too much light? Is it distracting to have too much light, or what is the light level that you need to make it comfortable? And I know that this sounds terrible, but you really need to spend some time just making sure that it's comfortable. Where I have my bike for indoor riding, I'm very comfortable. I've got it in the garage. That's what I like. Laura likes the bike inside, and that's what she likes. And she had that set up when she was doing a lot of indoor bike riding. So it's not the same for everyone, and it is important to just spend some time and make it your space.
Yep. So, John, I don't think you don't have a treadmill, do you?
I do not. No, I probably should get one, but
So I'm becoming more of a fan of treadmills in Las Vegas for the summer.
yeah.
You know, I think it was like maybe 3 years ago now. I've had my treadmill, I think, for 3 years. It
Hmm.
really was a summer thing. And I was like, you know what? I do not enjoy waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go and run.
Right.
And just for, purely for heat reasons.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about my recovery, like if I'm sleeping less,
Hmm.
I sleep an hour less so I can go for a run. It's probably not very good for my recovery. We know tons about sleep and recovery, and
Hmm.
obviously we have some experts on that at the university that we've talked about this. And so I really started thinking about that. I'm like, I'm going to change to running on a treadmill in the summer
Yeah.
purely for that reason. But now, even now in the winter, I'm kind of enjoying running on the treadmill when it's cold. Same thing, cold in the morning. It's not, your feet are cold, even here, right? Your feet get cold,
Hmm.
your nose is cold, your nose is running the entire time. Uh, the,
Yeah.
the treadmill's for me, it's just easy.
Yeah.
Mind you, I'm not doing really, really long runs. Like I think if I was doing a 2 hour run, the treadmill
Yeah.
get a little, one's getting a little bit old, but
No, it does. And you just make me chuckle because it is, I think back to running in the Northeast. I loved running in the winter, but running through a park when it was snowing. I mean, that just is a nostalgic feeling for me. But at the same time, I totally get, the challenges of running in summer because sometimes for a long run, you really need to get up early. Otherwise, you're just battling the heat. And although we've talked about the benefits of training the heat, there is a point where it's negative, and there's a fine line there with trying to find that right heat exposure relative to what you're doing training wise. So, no, that makes a lot of sense.
and you can get treadmills. I mean, I think I paid $250 for mine. It was used,
Hmm.
on OfferUp. Like people buy treadmills and they don't really run on them, and then they sell them. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think you need to go spend $3,000 or $2,000 on a treadmill.
no.
Just my advice would be to buy a used one.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, because a lot of people get rid of them after a couple months after New Year's.
I think mine had, I can't remember the exact number, but it was less than 10 miles on it. You can
Oh,
go the computer setting.
yeah, yeah.
So, I
Awesome.
mean, basically from the showroom, right? Like
But now indoor swimming is a little harder.
I swim indoors all the time. What are you talking about?
You do what?
I swim indoors all the
Oh, yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. But still going to a pool.
No, I'm just teasing you. I'm just
At
teasing
home, a home swim is a little tough, but there are some options now.
you. Huh?
I tried the Vasa trainer for a while, and that was okay, but I could never really get to enjoying that. To where I wanted to do it regularly. But there are some options that are being made available even for people who have a home pool. Like we have a local athlete that has one of the jet streams in her pool, and she swims with that. Now, of course, you have to heat your pool during the winter. That can be a little bit of a pricey tag right there, but
Ooh, you
yeah,
want to have a small pool.
no, that's right, that's right.
But
There are some options, and I think at least one other person locally has one of those endless pools, sort of like a hot tub
yep.
that has a jet stream. But again, you got to heat that definitely during the winter.
But to me, that this isn't such a big thing because we go to the pool 3 times a week anyways, and it doesn't
Mm.
really change because at least for us, we swim in an indoor pool,
Right.
and it's just we just have the same schedule, and it doesn't change. It gets dark, doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Just driving to the pool is dark at night or whatever. Uh,
Hmm.
Yeah. So to me, that's not the bigger one for me because the environment is relatively the same.
Yeah. And then I think, as you start working towards a race, there are sessions that you do need to do outside to
Yeah.
re-engage yourself with the road or with with the bike on and bike handling and just being, aware of what to be aware of when you're biking.
No, for sure. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not a proponent of never riding outside. Like I think
Yeah.
especially around race time, like I'm a little nervous, honestly, about the New Zealand race because I've only ridden outside twice in the last like 3 months. And
Hmm.
and the first time I was pretty nervous. I'm not going to lie to you. It was a little bit nerve wracking. And then, adding the fact we're going to be on the other side of the road and I haven't ridden my time trial bike outside yet.
Yeah. Mm.
And, one of the listeners to the show, she knows who she is thinking to lend me her time trial bike. I think I'm going to ride her bike in New Zealand.
Okay.
She's going to ride it on Saturday and I'm going to ride it on Sunday.
Nice. That's a great idea.
Well, my plan is to bring my road bike so I could tour around in New Zealand on my road bike
Yeah.
rather than on the time trial bike.
I don't even think I'm taking my bike.
See, smart guy. I like it.
I think I'm finding someone to loan me a bike. I don't know what kind of bike it is at this point, but this is my mindset: is I'm going to do the race, not race the race.
And
So
same with me. That's why I'm borrowing a bike because if I was going to try and win, I'd have my own bike.
that's right. And so for a 56.3, and I even wrote the person like, well, look, give me all your measurements. Let's just make sure it fits you. I'm like, close enough is good for me. I'm not, to the point where I need to be within a millimeter of a fit. I just need two wheels and some gears and I'll be good to go. So,
Yeah, I think it's a smart thing to do for this race.
yeah. Well, especially because we want to tour afterwards. And like you, I was thinking originally taking the bike, and I may still end up taking it if I don't get this bike loaner bike. Then you got to find someplace to put it after the race, and we're spending another week and a half after the race touring New Zealand. So I'd love to have my bike with me, but each time I'd have to break it down so it fits in the car because I don't have a bike rack. I guess I could go buy a bike rack for a couple of weeks and then, but that's just a whole nother layer of challenges. So,
Yeah, traveling on the bike like that is a challenge.
mhm.
But so, John, the question is, how many rides outside do you think you need before you race?
Well, I think that is individual dependent. For me, actually, the last few races, I've been doing 5 or 6 rides inside and then 1 or 2 rides outside each week. And I'm fine with that. But at the same time, I did notice that the longer I went, that each time I got on the bike, I had to really refocus what to pay attention to when I was riding on the road and not to do things that would make me unsafe. And so I really had to really pay attention because when I ride inside, I'm watching a movie, I'm listening to a podcast, I'm watching, scrolling through something, and so my mind is not, watching for cars, watching this and that, looking for red lights and stopping and what have you, and so it is. I realized that my outdoor rides were probably more for me getting sharper with my skills of what to pay attention to, as opposed to even bike handling.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think and it's gonna be very individual, right? Somebody that's
Mhm.
been riding competitively for a long time might need less time. I will tell you that it always is a concern to me, especially at Oceanside,
Yeah,
the first race of the year, that a lot of people haven't been outside.
right, right, right.
And that race specifically gets a lot of people from the north, from Washington, Oregon,
Hmm.
Canada, even. And we know that for the most part, they're not riding that much in the winter outside.
Hmm.
And you can tell, the bike handling skills is just a little bit less. Uh,
Yeah.
and I don't want to be part of that problem.
So, what's the longest you've gone riding indoors before a race, and or what's the shortest time that you've jumped back on the bike to get ready for a race?
That's a great question. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, this will for sure be, I've done 2 rides outside. and I
Hmm.
might get one more. Well, no, because I'll ride outside in New Zealand when we get there, so I'll have a
Yeah,
couple of rides in New Zealand. But I think for me, it probably is like this is going to be maybe 5 or 6 rides. That's it.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
But more like if I had the choice, like if I was, let's say I was racing Oceanside,
Hmm.
I would want to be outside for like the month before, like in March.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, I'd really like, unless it was just absolutely crummy weather,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to be
Right.
outside and I want to be on my time trial bike and I want to be like, and I really like to be in time trial position for most of it.
Hmm.
I know like when you're riding outside, you got lights and things like that, and it's not always easy to be completely in the time trial position
Hmm. Hmm.
because I think that does matter. And then the other thing is, I got a kicker climb and it goes up and down, and I think that's important as well.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people don't have that, but changing the position from, especially in time trialing where you're climbing or descending,
Hmm.
um, the position does actually make a difference.
Sure. Right. Right. Mm. Yeah, spending some time in aero position, doing the kicker climb.
Yep,
I don't have that, but yeah, that's good.
yep, yep. It's
Mm.
it's actually pretty fun to have the kicker climb because it just kind of goes along with the grade of the Zwift ride I'm doing, and I don't even think about it; just automatically goes up and down. It's actually nice because it changes the pressure point of where you're sitting.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Right.
Because like indoor, sometimes you can kind of get stuck right in that
Yeah.
same in the
Yeah.
same position all the time. Yeah.
Well, good stuff. Well,
Yeah.
let's see. The next time that we do one of these episodes, we should be in a whole different time zone and a whole different day.
I'm telling you, we should do it from the plane.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. We could do that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where you're sitting, but like we'll figure that out.
Just need a way to record it. So we would have to record it on a different platform other than
Yeah.
Zoom because we won't have
Or
yeah, or
internet.
being 42B and you're being 36A and we'll be on Zoom.
Yeah, we got to figure out how we do that. So
That's
awesome.
all right.
All right, John. Well, hey, this was good, and yeah, we will plan a podcast for sure, at least one, maybe two when we're in New Zealand.
That sounds
I'd
good.
love to do one before the race. We could talk
Yeah.
about the race course and uh,
Yeah.
maybe after we've had a little preview of what the roads are like. So then, and John, you're lucky because you've raced there before.
Yeah. No.
You have a little bit of an idea. I mean, for me, I have very little idea of what it's actually going to be. So yeah,
Yeah. It'll be good. It'll be good. It'll be New Zealand.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right,
All
hey,
right.
well, have a good rest of your long weekend.
Yeah, you too. And let's see who recorded. I don't
Yeah,
I don't think I'm recording, so I think it's yours.
here we go.